not as a determinative factor for admission, but as one of the factors among many in deciding who to admit from a already qualified pool of applicants. Today, the court once again walked away from decades of precedent and as the dissent has made clear. The dissent states in today's decision, quote, rolls back decades of precedent and momentous progress, end of quote. I agree with that statement from the dissents.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it looks like the Supreme Court has chosen to eliminate affirmative action because it was deemed racist. But of course, as you've seen there, Joe Biden has come out and said that this is horrid, this is bad, and this is not good, and the Supreme Court should reject the decision. Well, apparently Joe Biden, which you don't seem to understand that it is racist, that affirmative action, and we're going to be going over it a lot here on this channel and going exactly what's been going on. So, what we have here is that we have Supreme Court outlaws race as a major factor in college admissions in major affirmative action ruling. Justices vote 6-3 to rule Harvard and UNC programs unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has banned colleges from using race as a factor when admitting students in a landmark ruling on affirmative action Thursday. The justices decided a 6-3 vote that the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill race-based affirmative action admissions policy is unconstitutional. They also ruled 6-2 with the liberal Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson recused that Harvard's admission policy should also be struck down in decision sending shockwaves nationwide. The ruling ends a decades-old affirmative action policy that was designed to boost the number of black and Hispanic students in the colleges. Now, universities will have to look to new ways to better incorporate minority groups and ensure representation among student bodies. Because Harvard's and UNC's admissions programs lack sufficiently focused and measurable objectives warranting the use of race, unavoidably employ race in a negative manner, involve racial stereotyping, and lack of meaningful endpoints. Those admissions programs cannot be reconciled with the guarantees of the Equal Protection Clause, states the majority opinion written by Chief Justice John Roberts. Roberts added that for far too long, colleges within the United States have concluded wrongly that the touchstone of individuals' identity is not challenges bested skills built or lessons learned, but the color of their skin. Our constitutional history does not tolerate that choice. Robert was joined in the majority opinion by Republican-appointed justices Amy Coney Barrett, Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh. The court's liberal justices Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan dissented. The universities were sued by students for fair admissions and conservative nonprofit group over their race-based admissions policies in 2014, saying they violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. The cases made their way through lower courts, which ruled on the side of Harvard and UNC before the Supreme Court for oral arguments last year. Specifically, Harvard was accused of violating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, a landmark piece of legislation first proposed by John F. Kennedy that sought to outlaw racial discrimination. Title VI prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in any program or activity that receives federal funds or federal financial assistance. The case argued that Asian American students specifically have been illegally disadvantaged by affirmative action policies because despite achieving high grades, they score lower on Harvard's vague personal rating scale, particularly in unlikability ratings on positive personality compared to other applicants. The UNSC has also looked at the university could factor into admissions practices without the use of race and how it would impact diversity on campus. Both Harvard and UNSC have maintained that their use of race in admissions does not discriminate against Asian Americans. Justice Thomas, who was the second black justice appointed in history, called race-based admissions rudderless and designed to ensure a particular racial mix in their entering classes. He went on in his concurring opinion, which he read from the bench in a rare move, to state plainly that despite being painfully aware of discrimination against other individuals of his race, he has hope that all Americans will be treated equally under the law. While I am painfully aware of the social and economic ravages which have befallen my race and all who suffer discrimination, I hold out enduring hope that this country will live to its principles so clearly initiated in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, that all men are created equal, are equal citizens, and must be treated equally before the law, Thomas wrote. However, Democrat-appointed Justice Sotomayor said in a written dissent that the decision rolls back decades of precedent and momentous progress. The court cements a superficial rule of colorblindness as a constitutional principle in an endemically segregated society, she continued. In a separate dissent, the nation's first female black justice, Ketanji Brown, Jackson said that this 6-3 decision is a tragedy for us all. Gulf-side race-based gaps exist with respect to the health, wealth, and well-being of American citizens. They were created in the distant past, but have just indisputably passed down to the present day through the generations, she wrote. Jackson had rescued herself from the Harvard case due to her former position on the board of the university. In a footnote, Roberts wrote that military academies are exempt from Thursday's ruling due to their potentially distinct interests. There have been discussion about the role that the Pentagon has to ensure diversity within its rank and file troops is reflected, which could impact readiness and also discipline among ranks. Jackson criticized the decision by the majority of 2 exempt military academies. My apologies. She stated, the court has come to rest on the bottom line conclusion that racial diversity in higher education is only worth potentially preserving insofar so it might be needed to prepare black Americans and other unrepresented minorities for success in the bunker. Not the boardroom, particularly an awkward place to land in the light of the history the majority opts to ignore. We have that Edward Blum, who is behind Students for Fair Admission, said in a statement Thursday that the vast majority should celebrate the decision. A university doesn't have real diversity when it simply assembles students who look different but come from similar backgrounds and act, talk, and think alike, added Blum. A flurry of reactions started to unfold Thursday following the court's decision. Former Vice President Mike Pence cheered the ruling, saying there is no place for discrimination based on race in the United States, and I am pleased that the Supreme Court has put an end to this egregious violation of civil and constitutional rights in admission processes, which only serve to perpetuate racism. I'm honored to have played a role in appointing 3 of the justices that ensured today's welcome decision. And as president, I will continue to appoint judges who will strictly apply the law rather than twisting it to serve woke and progressive ends. His fellow 24 presidential hopeful Nikki Haley added, the decision will help every student, no matter their background, have a opportunity to achieve the American dream. And of course, Democrats have gone against this, and said Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Thursday the Supreme Court ruling has put a giant roadblock in our country's march toward racial justice. The consequences of this decision will be felt immediately and across the country, as students of color will face admission cycle next year with fewer opportunities. Ha! I got you guys, because there will going to be more on that very, very shortly, coming to what I have proof of. A group of 82 Republican lawmakers by Senator Ted Cruz and Representatives submitted an amicus brief in the case. So yeah, that's what's been going on. And this is what Joe Biden has to say about, how there's discrimination in this country and et cetera, and how bad it is and blah, 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 which I do agree that there's discrimination in this country, but discrimination against white people and black people, white people and Asians specifically. Take a look.
We all know it. Discrimination still exists in America. Discrimination still exists in America. Discrimination still exists in America. Today's decision does not change that. It's a simple fact. If a student had to overcome adversity on their path to education, the college should recognize and value that. Our nation's colleges and universities should be engines of expanding opportunity through upward mobility. But today, too often, that's not the case. The statistics, one statistic, students from the top 1% of family incomes in America are 77 times more likely to get into elite college than one from the bottom 20% of family incomes. 77% greater opportunity. Today, for too many schools, the only people who benefit from the system are the wealthy and the well-connected. The odds have been stacked against working people for much too long. We need a higher education system that works for everyone.
Which, again, I hate to break it to you, Joe Biden, but that's not what's happening here, at least in the public schools. Now, a lot of parents are either homeschooling their kids or they're taking their kids to private schools because they educate your kids better and actually teach them actual information that's needed. Whereas the public schools are not doing this. So by your own saying, this is not what happens. But let's just go prove Joe Biden wrong here, because there's a bit of things that he seems to be a little bit misinformed about and, kind of lying to the people as he always does because he's an idiot. And, of course, many of these other fools are lying. What we have here from the rabbit hole is 69% are against private colleges using race as a factor in admissions. 74% are against public colleges using race as a factor in admissions. Humanity is as an anti-woke bias. So we have here, private colleges and universities should be able to use race as a factor in admissions. All And then we have this one here for 42, 43. Private colleges and universities should not be able to use race as a factor in admissions. Which you have 69, and you have all this here. All this. And then public colleges and universities should not be able to use race as a factor in admissions. You have all of it between 20 tracks, 26, 40, and 25. And yeah, public colleges and universities should not be able to use race as a factor in admissions, and you have all this here as well. And then this is from the previous court has yet to be decided. And we have more as well from this. We have the rabbit hole says the Supreme Court just ruled against affirmative action. Why? Because it's systemically racist. Harvard applicants in the top academic decile have different chances of admission depending on their race. Asians 12.7%, whites 15.3%, Hispanics 31.3%, and blacks are 56.1%. We have this from Price here that says pretty much around the same thing here, that how insane did Harvard's affirmative action policies get? An African American student in the 40th percentile of their academic index is more likely to get it than an Asian student in the 100th percentile. Black students in the 50th percentile are more likely to get it than white students at the top. So what you're seeing here is that this is more written here, or what have you, and all the information that you guys need. I will obviously be posting this in the description down below so you guys get to see exactly what we're talking about here. What we have is that Harvard is really trying to not allow people, students, and what have you, to pretty much continue with their racism. And what we have here from Eliana Johnson is Harvard to turn to essays, it says in an email. We have this here. Is that, I will move this temporarily. We have this here. Dear members of the Harvard community, today the Supreme Court delivered its decision in Students for Fair Admissions v. President and Fellows of Harvard College. The court held that the college's admission system does not comply with the principles of the Equal Protection Clause embodied in Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. The court also ruled that colleges and universities may consider admissions decisions and applicants' discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise. We will certainly comply with the court's decision. Yeah, I don't know about that one. They don't seem to be wanting to comply with the court's decision at all. But I digress. We have this here, of course, for Biden slime this. And then we have teen accepted to Stanford after writing Black Lives Matter 100 times on application. So, as you can see here, this is a problem, right? And we have this as well, here as well, that more than a third of white students lie about the race on college applicants' survey finds. So, what we're seeing here is that people, even of other races that are not black, have decided to go either political because they have to get accepted, or lie so that they can get into the actual colleges. Now, I don't know about you, Democrats and the very far left, but if I see somebody to where they have to, where more than a third of white students lie about their race on college application, that means that these people know that they have to lie in order to get in, which means your affirmative action is automatically racist because you're preventing a certain group of people to get in, and they have to lie just to get in. Even people that are not black or white, for that matter, have to lie or to be political to get into these colleges. So, I don't know about you, but I think your affirmative action is systemically racist. You people don't like black, you people do not like white people, you don't like Asians, and this is being proven right now as we see it in broad daylight. So how can you combat this exactly? Well, I don't think you can, because otherwise you're going to have to prove on why this person that wrote Black Lives Matters 100 times, and why more than a third of white students have to lie about the race on college applications, including when we go down to here, to where Asians are 12.7% and whites are 15.3%, but you have Hispanics that are 15% more than whites, and blacks are about 30% more than whites, and even more so from Asians. So I don't know about you, but it seems that only you. It seems that your racism is being shown here, and you guys are caught in a very between a rock and a hard place. Oh well, I guess that's it for the video, guys. Like, subscribe, share, as always. Take care, and be happy with your new ability to actually be able to enter college without being racially profiled.